Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Money Matters Top Tips for Success, where each and every day I bring on new business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and have them share their top tips for success with you. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Jillian Manus on the line, and she is the managing partner over at Structure Capital. Jillian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I'm excited to get more into what you're doing over at Structure Capital and how you're helping your clients. But before we do that, let's get a little bit further into your background. So how did you get started in your career and in business?
I would love to say that I had one straight path, but I really didn't. My background is really kind of a blend of everything everywhere. So banking from credit in Zurich, Credit Suisse was one place. I also I did mergers and acquisitions there. I also had a stint, when I say stint, a pretty long stint as movie executive. I know that sounds like not a clear path, but I was director of development at Warner Brothers, Universal Studios. I was an agent at IC, a talent agent at ICM. I worked I was associate publisher of a magazine that tracked the technology trends, financial technology trends. And I've started 3 companies myself. One was a sports management company for ancillary rights for professional athletes, and one was a brand communication company, and one with a media investment company. And all those had an exit. And I also started a 4th company that sort of blew up. I think I could not get out of my own way on that company, and I learned a lot of lessons, and definitely extremely humbling. But I've also had lots of other, what I would say, not careers, but at different points in my life. I was struggling at some points when I was much younger, and didn't really know what or where I was going. And I worked part-time in different jobs. I was a roller skating waitress. I was a receptionist, a receptionist, a law firm in the graveyard shift. I worked I was a receptionist at Vidal Sassoon. I mean, if I could tell you, my life really took so many twists and turns, which actually at the time was probably confusing to some people, and I think to me as well. But what it did is, when I landed here, as I always say, on the back nine of life, and I launched into venture capital, and one of my other positions was I was a senior advisor at a very large clean tech company, a clean tech fund, a $5 billion fund. And so that bigger environment is also extremely important to me. But with all these different, I would say, parachuting into positions and trying to master them and starting your own company, I think that helped me at this point to better understand market, geography, and product market fit, because I have done so many different things. And so I always say to people in life that there is no one path or one good decision. In fact, you can always get out of a decision as far as it's a career decision. Just learn from that career, whatever it may be, so that it will inform you for other choices in life.
That's awesome. And I think that's pretty common nowadays, that people are becoming more accepting that you're not going to have your, your first job and be there 20, 30 years and retire. It's just a whole different marketplace. So I love your path, and it does make total sense what you said. By having that plethora of experiences, it allows you to better evaluate companies now. That being said, there's some younger entrepreneurs out there that are maybe where you just started. So maybe they're just getting going, and maybe they're on their first venture. And obviously now you have the benefit of hindsight on your side, and you also essentially evaluate companies for a living, right? To deploy capital. What kind of advice would you give to that new budding, just that fresh entrepreneur out of college that's really going out there with their first venture?
Yes. Well, there are about 3 cardinal rules in venture capital, but in life, I think. One is, do not try to start a company yourself. So we discourage solo founders. It is super important for you to find a co-founder, not only to share the responsibilities, but be able to come at a problem through 2 different lenses and 2 different skill sets. So if you're a heavy-duty operations person and a salesperson and a visionary and a marketing, then you find a deep tech mind. You find a chief technology officer right away, so to speak. You need someone who's going to build the engine and also the vision. So the first thing is never be a solo founder. It's also harder to raise money that way, and it's just much more difficult, period. And we've seen more companies fail simply because they have a solo founder. Mm. The second one is that you need to really have a self-awareness in order to build a company. We find that it is often the people that fail, never the products. When it comes to startups, you need to better understand what your weakness is, what your strength is, and then be able to build a company with humility, not with I would say cockiness. You need courage to build a company, and you need confidence to build a company, but it's not bravado that's going to build a company. It is more humility than anything else. I think of humility as a quiet ego, and it enables others to believe in you, but also believe that they can trust you with humility and coupled with honesty. And trust is really the critical piece in terms of building a business. Trust is what enables you to retain trust and vision. And curiosity. I would say those are the 3 things. And so that self-awareness is a critical piece. It's very hard to find yourself and start a business all at the same time.
I love that. It's very hard to find yourself and start a business. That's true. I mean, for anybody that's out there that's listening and they're like, wow, especially if you've been through, that's experience you're talking through right now. Especially if you're on your first venture, you won't get that. But if you're on your 3rd or 4th, and you're listening to this, you're going to get that, exactly what Jillian was talking about.
Right. And I want to add one more because I'm on the Duke of Fuqua Board of Innovation and Entrepreneurism, or actually E&I. And one of the things, and I work a lot with startups, obviously, all over the world. One of the biggest problems is that people, young entrepreneurs or old entrepreneurs, sometimes they look for a problem to a solution rather than a solution to a problem. So they try to find they come up with a solution that they want to work on, that they think is interesting, but they don't qualify if this is a big enough problem or if this problem really does exist. I think it is better to go out into this world and go to fanatical, what I call fanatical customers, and find what their biggest problem is in a sector. And it's just, I see people are creating retail, creating clothing lines because they think that this is a big problem. This clothing is a big problem. But the fact is that those things already exist, or they're too small a problem. And so the addressable market is really critical. One of the biggest problems, I said at the beginning, is people are working on a solution and then chasing the problem.
I like it. And I think this is also a good transition. Let's get into what you're doing over at Structure Capital. So we touched on it briefly, but let's go further. So tell me more about the business, please.
Yeah. So Structure Capital is an early stage Silicon Valley fund. We brand ourselves as architects of the zero waste economy. So what underutilized assets and excess capacity. So what we can do better with what we have, as well as, and we look at that as space. So some of our companies are Breather and Sonder and Canopy and Peerspace. What we can do better with space, what we can do with transportation. We were an early investor in Uber, but we also have a scooter company called Wheels Lab that we invest in, which is a new form factor for scooters with a replaceable battery and wider wheels, and it has a small seat, and we see a lot of lift on that company. We look at space and transportation. We look at resources. How can we work with waste resources? We have a company called Liquid Glide that's created a zero stick surface, so it enables liquids to basically slide out of bottles and to slide out of tubes, and it also reduces wastewater in, let's say, tanks. So in a mixing tank or a holding tank, 90% plus slides out of a tank, therefore reducing the wastewater when you're cleaning the tank and refilling the tank. And it's a liquid impregnated barrier, so it doesn't change the composition of the liquids in, let's say, the bottle or the tube. It is going to be, from my eyes and from what we've heard, is the largest transformational technology in the last decade. It's called Liquid Glide, and so it has many, many applications, CPG, and it has tank applications, but it has so many other ones. And so we look at those types of waste as resources, wastewater. And then we look at wasted human potential. And there's so much talk and fear about humans being replaced by AI. And I think that there's obviously some validity to these conversations. But I also think that this is the time that we can actually optimize human potential, because we are looking at AI as taking over those menial tasks that the humans should not be doing, but we should actually upskill and reskill our present workforces. And we have two companies. One is called The Muse out of New York City, a wonderful female founder, Catherine. And then we have another company called Shift, and this is one of our favorite companies, as well as a company, not favorite, because you can't say favorite because that was
I was just going to say, yeah.
Right,
can't do that. They're all your favorite.
But one of the compelling companies, we have actually two of those. It's called WorkPath, and it mobilizes healthcare workforces. It's on-demand healthcare. So if you need a phlebotomist, a HR, you need an MRI tech, you need a nurse, you need a practitioner, or you need a PICC line nurse. It basically enables companies and individuals on-demand healthcare. That's called WorkPath. But we have a company that basically uses AI and machine learning to translate military skills, military resumes into the private sector. And the most underutilized and highest talent actually is from the military. But you haven't been able to, the private sector hasn't been able to translate the military skills. So in the last months of service, what most people don't realize is that the military will pay for an internship. And so it's a try or buy for companies to onboard tech talent from the military, try them for 3 months in what we call a fellowship program, and then convert them into full-time positions. And so Shift really is this incredible way for not only companies to bring on this high-tech talent from bases all over the country, but also as we look at companies reskilling and upskilling their present workforces, Shift will be able to calculate and and assess your present skills of your present workforces. They have they have contracts with everybody from the MLB, the Major League Baseball, to Palantir, to Oracle and Cisco and Adobe and Okta and Affirm and all these and Uber and even WeWork. We really are trying to find a way in this world. If you were to talk about our mission, is yes, it is underutilized resources. It is zero waste economy, but we would really like to put a fishing rod in every person's hands, as we talk about Maimonides, giving person a fishing pole, not the fish. It is critical now more than ever for everyone to have a job that they are proud of and that they can create a self-sufficient life. And I think that we at Structure are very mindful of that. We have values that are critical to our mission. We teach our values to our companies. And so when we talk about how to build a company, and we spoke at the very beginning in terms of what entrepreneurs need or what companies need, they also have to have value-aligned missions. And companies that have values right now are those that do succeed. And so I also ask founders, not just who's working with you, what are you building, but what are your values that are going to be your North Star to build and take this company to success?
That's awesome. And so Jillian, you have a unique vantage both with your background and also with your location, and deal flow. I mean, you're looking at things all day long. It's your day in and day out. Are there any kind of trends
Absolutely.
that you care to comment on just in general from your vantage point?
Yeah, it's really very difficult to talk about trends. I can speak about areas that I feel are of interest to me that perhaps you would not think of, but I think pets. I know that sounds interesting or a little bit off, but one of our companies is WAG, but I've also seen companies with veterinarians. I think pet health is a very big area. There are companies, I find that pets are obviously they're a global market. How do we deliver pet health? How do we deliver not even just pet health, but there are companies, there's one in particular that is pet genealogy. So it's almost like 23andMe for pets, because a lot of people have pets and rescue pets and they don't know what their background is. But they also, it's very interesting. Pets, as we know, have created much value in terms of companionship for people all over the world. But how much do we know about our pets? And we spend tremendous amount in that market in terms of pet accessories, pet health, pet transportation, Uber just launched pet Uber for pet owners. I think we travel with our pets. And so that's an area that I think is really fascinating. I do really like HR tech. I think there's a lot being done in that. We look at skills marketplaces. I like space. How do we look at space and how do we utilize space? I think that anything that I steer away from areas which I don't know a lot about. Even if I use products, and let's say in the beauty industry, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to invest in it because I don't have expertise in that area of marketing, of placing. Interior designs is a big area. 60% of all home decor is purchased by millennials. It's an area that I don't know as much about. A company would have to have significant traction before I would invest in that, but that is a very big dynamic area that I see as, I hate to use the word trend, but that is definitely an area that people are looking more at. A lot of consumer products, but I like brands that support enterprise brands. I like companies that are a solution for brands, for bigger brands. And so I think that it's very, very smart for a company, for an entrepreneur, to look at a market in terms of what are the 3 top brands that I can either solve a problem that they're having or I could expand their brand. I mean, that's the thing that WAC did when it launched, and it was looking at Tecto, and it was looking at Purina, and it was looking at how can I solve or be a conduit or a expansion of their own brands. How are these companies, how can I support something these companies are doing so potentially they would be the ones to acquire me? And that's what I look for. I look for companies that are partnered up with one brand, even just one brand as a halo or an anchor. Salesforce calls that a lighthouse partner or a lighthouse brand, where they would work with you to build your product with you on a path to using the product and potentially to acquiring it. And those are the companies that I'm interested.
So, Jillian, if somebody's listening to this and they want to learn more about Structure Capital, what's the best way for them to get that info?
Yeah, well, we definitely have a robust website. And for everyone who's listening, we also have a job board. And we have over 400 positions in our companies because our companies place their jobs, a lot of their jobs, onto our site. So if you go to Structure Capital, drop down, and you'll see the bar. It says job board, and you can use that to find jobs in our companies all over the country and, in fact, all over the world. And I would recommend and I would encourage people, because we really love to get switched on listeners and people who are educating themselves by listening to this podcast into our companies. So that's one way to engage with Structure Capital. We're also raising a growth fund in case you're interested, for our top performing companies, in case you're interested in investing into a dynamic Silicon Valley fund. We like diversity of both within our companies as within our investors. And if you're starting a company, learn more about our portfolio. Go to our website, structurecapital.com, and read a little bit about our companies and read a little bit about what we do in the press. I do some business commentary on Bloomberg, so does my partner, Mike Walsh. Jacob Shea is out there, one of our partners. We work a lot, we speak a lot, and educate yourself on who we are and if we're a good fit. We're not investing right now in new companies because we're raising this growth round, but we definitely hope that through we have companies that might be a good fit for you. So thank you so much for this invitation. I commend you on this podcast. Your mission is, as you say, to edutain, and I think that's the best way to elevate people's minds and spirits. So it's been a pleasure being on this show.
Fantastic. And Jillian, really appreciate you coming on today and sharing more about your background and all the great things you're doing at Structure Capital.
Absolutely. Can I just do one thing, because I have to pitch my podcast?
Yes.
We have a podcast as well. It's called The Pitch. It's produced by Spotify, and it's the Wall Street Journal called it a while back the antithesis for a Shark Tank. So if you're starting a business and you really want to learn some basic and some amazing ways to building some tools, listen to our podcast called The Pitch, because we have crazy founders on there, and we do fund them. But we teach them a lot, and this has been quite a huge momentum around this podcast, The Pitch, and I think we all support each other, and that's one big learning tool that I've seen made a huge difference for companies and has found big dollars for them as well. So The Pitch,
Perfect.
But I love your podcast as well. So
no, awesome. Always love to build the podcasting community. So no, thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you got that in. It wasn't in my show notes, but I'm glad. Go check out Pitch, everybody that's listening.
Yeah.
And that being said, we got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share this episode with your friends, family, and colleagues. Do all those great things we do to support our podcasters, and don't forget to go check out The Pitch. And thanks, Jillian, again for coming on the show.